Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bookmakers TV YouTube channel. This is the Premier League preview show. It's the second of these shows that we've done. Last week, of course, was it was an FA Cup preview, wasn't it? So we're back to the Premier League this week. Loads happening. It's getting back to some sort of normality where we're starting to see fixtures in the proper days. I think this might be the last few days of it now, where it's a bit all over the place, but we should be okay from, say, this weekend. I'm again joined by Liam, and I'm joined by Jamie. And look, there's some huge games in the Premier League this weekend. Huge ones at the bottom, and really, really, really huge ones at the top. And although we're probably hitting halfway, just about halfway through the season, these already feel like they can have a massive say in a lot of teams' final positions, I suppose, when the season ends. Liam, how are you after the Cup and the win against Everton? All good at United? Because I have a big question for you in a little bit.
Yeah, well, look, I think the result was great in terms of just getting through, but the performance probably wasn't up there with what we've seen over the last few weeks, either side of Christmas. We were lucky at times, I think. Everton obviously got that equalised, disallowed through offside, was rightly offside. Um, and obviously a few changes came in towards the end of the game. But at the end of the day, a win's a win. I thought Casemiro was excellent again. Rashford is just on a different level. Hopefully he can keep that form going. And we're into the next round, so can't complain too much.
Mm. Jamie, Spurs true as well. 1-0 win against Portsmouth. We all predicted the win last week, but we all, well, I had the mad. I thought I said 4-2 or something like that. But Harry Kane gets the goal. Just happy to be in the next round. Doesn't sound like it was the best game in the world.
Yeah, just delighted that we've obviously made it into the next round. I mean, you look at the number of Premier League teams that have gone out now. I think already 8 Premier League teams are out. I think, going into that fifth round, we could potentially see a maximum of 9 Premier League teams. So I think there's now a great opportunity there for some of these top teams, the likes of Manchester United, Spurs, Man City, to all go on and win this competition. And, we spoke about it in the last episode. The FA Cup is something that does feel really important for Spurs this season. So it's a competition now I hope we do take really seriously, because I think there's a great opportunity to do something in this competition. I think Antonio Conte has kind of spoken about how the league is more important to Spurs. But look, Spurs fans, we're desperate to see that trophy. Obviously, the FA Cup, I said on the last episode, it's a competition we've got great tradition in. It's a competition we haven't won for a very long time, though. So it would be fantastic if we now do take that seriously. And I know the majority of Spurs fans want us to do that. We want us to go hard in this competition. And, Preston in the next round, we've got a great chance of getting to that fifth round of the competition. So, yeah, it was far from the nicest of games to watch. It was 18 attempts we had, 1 on target, which was not ideal. So it wasn't the prettiest of viewings, but yeah, we're through. So I was all I'm pleased about.
Yeah, getting through is what it's all about, especially when you're playing lower league opposition, because anything can happen. Look at Aston Villa, like genuinely, the amount of people that spoke to me hours after that game just could not believe that Stevenage were in the next round and Aston Villa weren't, because they probably turned it off on 89 or 88 minutes. But look, Premier League again this weekend. There's some, like I said, there's some huge games at the bottom and some huge games at the top. So we're going to preview 2 from the bottom and then 2 from the top, and we'll go from there. So what I want to start with is, I want to start with Wolves v West Ham. Now we're halfway through the season. I completely understand that, but these are starting to feel like massive games already, because it just feels like some clubs are hanging on a little bit, and if they get one hammer blow, it could really derail their season completely, where they just lose kind of hope and fade away. And there's a couple in contention for that, but Wolves currently sit 19th with 14 points. Everton or West Ham sits 17th with 15 points, so there's nothing in this. Liam, I'll come to you first. Wolves have shown a little bit of a spark since their new manager has come in. They go and they get that draw away at Villa in the league. They get that draw against Liverpool in the cup as well. And I'm going to put it out there. I think they'll be absolutely fine. I think they've brought in the manager at the right time. I think they get out of it. You look at West Ham though, and you're kind of going, they just don't seem to be getting going at all. Where do you sit on this one? Because I think it's a huge game already. It's early enough in the season. I know it's halfway through, but early enough as a relegation 6-pointer. I think this is it.
Well, 100%. This game at the weekend marks the halfway point of the Premier League.
Mm.
Everyone would have played 19 games there. So this is as close as you can get for a relegation 6-pointer at this point in the season. West Ham obviously got an important win at the weekend, albeit in the FA Cup against sort of a rotated side. But I think David Moyes needed that. I think he needed that. And I think the players needed that. They look better going forward, a bit more vibrancy about them. Jared Bowen actually looked sort of old season Jared Bowen. Last season Jared Bowen. Wolves, on the other hand, really important draw, got a replay. Could have potentially won. No, we're not going to discuss it today.
Should have won.
That potential offside that we couldn't really see through the VAR cameras. Who knows if that was that or not? But I thought they looked good. I think we predicted last week that Wolves would turn up and at least have a good attempt at Liverpool. Didn't probably think that they'd get the draw because of just lack of goals. But 2 goals at Anfield, never an easy thing to do, even in Liverpool's current form. They're going into a home draw, and I just look back at Wolves when Manchester United went there a few weeks ago. They made it really difficult. Made it really, really difficult. Lopetegui's got a really well-drilled defensive unit. Yes, they need goals. I think if Guedes can add that to his game, Jimenez, Diego Costa, they've got a few up there that they can just get 1 or 2. And I think West Ham's defence crumbles so easily. As soon as 1 goal goes in, sort of the crowd turns and players' heads drop. I think it'll be really difficult for West Ham. So I'm actually going to go for a Wolves win here.
I'll get your prediction in a couple of minutes. But Jamie, when you look at these 2 sides, Lopetegui's come in. Wolves feel like they were poor at the start of the season, lack of goals.
Yeah.
You're kind of going, where are the goals coming from? Where they conceding too many. It was very Wolves, not scoring an awful lot, not conceding an awful lot, a couple of draws in there, and they just aren't getting over the line and getting wins. But how different does it feel for you for Wolves and West Ham? Because while Wolves now to me look like change of manager, they brought in Cunha as well, they feel like they can progress now and easily go into mid-table for me. That's in my mind. Whereas West Ham, you're looking going, this manager's been here a little while, he spent an awful lot of money, did a good European run, and they don't feel like there's a spark there. Now, Liam points out they win the FA Cup at the weekend, and that could be the spark. But yet in the Premier League, we just feel like they're just gradually moving down and down and down to the point where is Moyes' job under threat as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel kind of it's got to that point under David Moyes where maybe that change does need to happen. It does feel like they are coasting a little bit at the moment. Obviously a bit of question marks over whether they did enough in the summer to kind of refresh the squad. I think last season would have taken a lot out of that team, to go on that European run. Obviously, they did fairly well in the league as well. I think there was one point where they were pushing hard for getting into the Europa League again, obviously, but there was a big drop-off. And, and then to have also finished the season, having lost in that semi-final of the Europa League, I think kind of that disappointment and all the effort they put in, I think that's kind of what's led to this season feeling very much underwhelming and maybe some players kind of feeling that was a real missed opportunity last season. So I think there's definitely a sense of like disappointment at West Ham and maybe that need for a refresh. But at the moment, it just doesn't really seem like there's any direction to that team at the moment. You don't really know where they're heading. I think you'd probably say that looking at other teams in that league, they will be safe. I think they have got enough quality in that team. I still think Jared Bowen, as we said, is a great player. Obviously, they've got some good attackers, Skamaka and obviously Antonio as forward options. So I think they'll be safe. But at the moment, it's difficult to know what direction they're heading in and, whether David Moyes is the right man to kind of carry on. But, on the other hand, Wolves, they look like there maybe is a sense of direction again. Obviously, Lopetegui, I think, was a real coup to get him in. Obviously, he's done a fantastic job in Spain. Obviously, really built a great reputation there. And I think he's made a fairly decent start to his time at Molyneux at the moment. As we said, he got that impressive draw at Liverpool on the weekend. I think the start in the Premier League's been good as well. Obviously, got the draw away at Aston Villa, which I think's no mean feat to go there and get a result. Obviously, despite their defeat on the weekend at Villa Park. But I think Wolves obviously made a good start under Lopetegui. I think it's going to be an interesting one. And do you know what? I do agree with Liam. I do think this will be a Wolves win, especially with the game being at Molyneux.
Okay. It feels to me like the season might be defined in the next 4 or 5 games for both these sides. And what I mean by that is 4 or 5 games time, you might look and go, geez, the Wolves have won 3 and drawn 1, or 1-2 and drawn 2, and they've picked up points to get out. And West Ham might look and go, no, hold on, this is just not happening. It was Brentford they beat in the cup, I think. That win just wasn't enough, and we haven't sparked, and they're going to get rid of him, because then you'd be 14 games from the end, and you're thinking, we have to make a change, we can't leave it too late. So I think it's a huge game. Go on, let's have some predictions. Liam, go first.
I think it's going to be a cagey affair, but Wolves steal it in the end, 1-0.
1-0 Wolves. Okay, Jamie.
Oh, that's difficult. I was literally thinking 1-0 as well, because I think with Wolves, we said they're really kind of missing goals at the moment, but it's the same case for West Ham. I mean, they've only scored 15 times a season, West Ham, so I think it's two teams with a lack of goals. I'm going to have to go for 1-0 as well. I think that was the exact prediction I was going to look at.
1-0.
You know that we've said that now there's going to be a hatful of goals.
Well, I hope so.
It's going to be 4-3 Wolves.
Well, I hope so, because my prediction before, I wrote mine down before we started, and I have 2-2. I think it's the sort of game where there could be goals for both sides in it. But at the back, I think there's still issues for both sides. So I'm gonna go with 2-2. Moving on to our second game, and our second big game, I suppose, of the weekend at the bottom of the division, and it's Everton versus Southampton at Goodison Park. And Everton get torn apart by Brighton last week, and it's a real low. I've listened to some Everton podcasts since. Lads I know that I listen to their stuff most of the time, and it was such a low for them. They go to Old Trafford. Yeah, they put up an okay performance, but for me, watching that, I was kind of going, you probably had 5 shots on goal across the whole game, 6 maybe 1 or 2 on target. A little bit unfortunate with the second goal, I think, and then the penalty near the end and whatever, but Everton fans are pointing to, there's a bit of fight in us and stuff like that, and that's absolutely fine, but it's the league form that's hurting them at the moment. Southampton sit bottom with 12 points, Everton 18th with 15 points. Jamie, I'm going to start with you, because out of all them clubs, Southampton, changed manager. Wolves have changed manager, and Southampton haven't got that bounce. Wolves look like they may have. West Ham might stick with Moyes and trust him because of what he done last season, but Everton feel to me like the one that are on the shakiest ground. And what I mean by that is that another 1 or 2 defeats in a row, and this just will turn into mayhem at that club. How big is this game? Because I think this is huge, because if Southampton beat Everton, Southampton will be on 15 points alongside Everton.
I mean, Everton cannot afford another home defeat as well, because that crowd will really turn on them. But for Everton, I think for both teams, this is just such a big game. I think these two teams are, you look at the teams kind of in and around the bottom 3. I mean, these two that look like they're kind of in the most danger at the moment. Southampton, for me, appointing the new managers they did, it does feel like they were very much kind of preparing for relegation. I think you look at that squad, there's kind of very little hope of where it might change. I know the fans were already singing kind of, they weren't happy with the way they were playing on the weekend at Selhurst Park, and they were kind of singing chants against the manager already. So it does feel for Southampton that maybe they were already preparing for being in the Championship next season. And again, I say you look at that squad, very little hope. For Everton, I think it will be a case of whether they can sort the defence out again. I think towards the start of the season, we kind of saw that they were looking strong defensively. Obviously, they had James Tarkowski and others they brought in the defence, and that was maybe the area that they looked like strong in. Attacking wise, I mean, you give them very little hope. Calvert-Lewin was really that guy, and obviously Richarlison last season, who they've now lost. So they are missing players in attack. So it's going to be a case of whether they can sort that defence out again. If they can, I think they've got a chance of staying up. But at the moment, it's kind of all over the place for Everton. And I said for these two teams, I think this game is massive, because I think these two are the ones in the biggest danger at the moment. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in this one.
Yeah, it's, Liam, when Jamie talks there, you look at Southampton, it does feel like a bit like they're sleepwalking towards relegation. And I know we're only halfway through, but, they've changed manager. They haven't got that kind of, they've won 3 and 5, that thing that happens. And they just haven't done that. Now, in fairness, I think he's only had 3 league games in charge, or 4 league games in charge, because I think he comes in and he's in the job just before the international break. It's actually away at Anfield, as his first game, I think, where he's officially manager of Southampton. So he hasn't had an awful long time. Whereas Everton, you look and Lampard's been there a little while, and I'm trying to make a case for Everton having more than Southampton in these games, but they need to go to 5 at the back maybe to keep it solid. Yeah. Anthony Gordon doesn't score enough goals. Dwight McNeil doesn't score goals. Calvert-Lewin isn't scoring goals. Mopay doesn't score goals. And their midfield seems to be there to try protect what's behind them.
Yeah.
I can just see a really, really cagey game, a really poor game of football here. But like Jamie says, you can't lose this one, can't you? Not for both sides, you
Oh,
just can't lose it.
yeah, 100%. I think you're absolutely spot on. Everton, albeit at home at Goodison Park, have to go defensive because you can't lose this game. It's that important. Southampton picked up a great result against Palace in the FA Cup.
Mm.
Absolutely great result. And that might just kickstart them, as well as the news of Miroslav Orsic coming in. That's a really, really top player that Jamie will know about from the Zagreb playing against Spurs a few years ago. And he might just be able to kickstart their attack. He's a player that scores goals, got a great record in Europe and for Zagreb as well. I just think him coming in, if he's eligible and can play in that weekend game against Everton, that could be absolutely massive for them. Because Southampton will probably sit back themselves and just try and counter. They've got young lads in there, but they've got really, really quick technical players that can counter teams and cause disruption and cause damage on the break. So I think you're absolutely right. Everton will probably try a similar tactic as well, and there'll probably be a lack of quality and a lack of flow to the game. It would be quite bitty, and I'll probably go for a draw in this one because of that. But I also know and recognise, because I saw it on Friday night, that when a team scores against Everton, we talk about crowds turning. That Goodison Park crowd will turn so quickly and I just think that's going to be an incredibly hostile atmosphere. If Southampton get an early goal, it could just completely change, and Southampton could run away with it 2-3.
The longer it goes on,
The longer it goes on,
yeah.
absolutely. So I'll stick to a draw, but it wouldn't surprise me if Southampton get an early one and just go on for the run.
Okay. When you say a draw, what's the score? 0-0?
No, I'm going to be optimistic. 1-1.
1-1. Okay, good stuff. We're going to see goals at Goodison. Jamie, what's your prediction on this one?
Yeah, it's so difficult to call this one because I said both teams are such poor form at the moment. I mean, it's interesting actually to see Southampton. They did win at the weekend, obviously getting that win away at Crystal Palace, which was a real surprise to me to see them. But I'm actually going to go for an Everton win here. I think just because it is at Goodison Park. I know obviously we mentioned that maybe that could be a bad thing in a way in terms of the crowd turning on them, but they just cannot afford to lose this one, and I think they will just edge it. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Everton.
2-1. I think Everton losing the Wobie is huge. Now it looks like he might be out for possibly 3 to 4 weeks, but in that time, Everton do play Southampton, and I'm nearly sure they play someone else around them down there as well, and maybe a Leeds or a West Ham. But losing him is big because he's been their best player this season. Any Everton fan you speak to says Wobie's been their best player this season, and that'll be a big loss. I'm kind of with both of you here. I think Liam is spot on. I think if Southampton score early, or the longer this goes on, it's 0-0, that crowd just gets very angst. There's a lot of angst, there's a lot of nervousness in the crowd, and it kind of spills onto the pitch. And Southampton could win it. But Jamie, you're right. Everton get the crowd behind them. You might think they'll edge them out. But I've heard a lot of Everton fans saying, look, we've done all this last season. We can't keep doing this every season and turning up and turning that volume up constantly when this is what we're being dealt with on the pitch. This is so it's a very, very hard one. I'm going to go 1-1, and I actually think Southampton do score first, but Everton grab one back. Right. And I just think it's such a hard game to call. So I'm going to go 1-1 in this, and it'll be mayhem at the bottom of the league come the end of this weekend. Let's look up towards the top though. There's big games in the Premier League every year, and this one is one of the biggest. The Manchester Derby, Manchester United against Manchester City, and as it stands, Manchester United are in 4th place with 35 points, City in 2nd with 39. And I'm going to ask this question to you, Liam. I'm going to come to you first as a United fan.
Yeah.
Are United title contenders?
No, it's far too early to be talking like that, I think.
Okay. If Manchester United win this game at the weekend, are they title contenders?
Oh, God.
Put them a point off City.
It's just so difficult to. I just don't see it. You can say they're title contenders because they're within touching distance of Arsenal, and they also go to the Emirates the following week. And if they get a win there, then I think it's within 4 points perhaps or something like that, depending on what results go. I just can't see United genuinely being title contenders unless they bring someone in that isn't Wout Weghorst. it's all great having Weghorst in there for a little loan option.
Has that been confirmed?
No, I think they're just in talks. They're in
Okay.
talks at the moment. And look, it's a different way of playing, and Ten Hag's got his reasons, obviously, for doing it. But you look at Chelsea; they're about to bring in João Felix. You've got Arsenal; they're going to bring in Murdic from Shakhtar Donetsk. Players that will really elevate both those teams. Manchester United don't have the funds for that. There's a lot going on with the sale of the club. Glazers obviously don't want to put more money into it because they're about to get rid of it. So I understand all of that. But my point there is that I just don't see this season, for as much as we have played really well over the last 8 games, especially, and won all of those, and really bounced back after the first 2 defeats against Brighton and Bournemouth, Brentford. Sorry, Brighton and Brentford. I just can't see United sustaining a level of consistency that's needed to go all the way, especially when you think still in the FA Cup, got Europa League against Barcelona, got EFL Cup obviously tomorrow night against Charlton, and then potentially into the semi-finals. There's too many fixtures, the huge fixture congestion for a squad that on paper is good enough perhaps, but when you look at the midfield options that come in, Freddie McTominay compared to Casemiro and Eriksen, it's worlds apart. And I think that's the problem there.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you in a minute to talk to you about the game itself. But, Jamie, this is a huge game. There's so many caveats to this because, United can get within a point of City with a win. City can put pressure on Arsenal, who don't play till the following day, with a win. A defeat for Man City means Arsenal can move that gap out to 8 points again. Arsenal lose to your team in Spurs, which we talked to a bit, and then it's like, City have closed the gap. There's so much going on this weekend with movement in the table, and again halfway through, but you're kind of going, this is a real weekend where people are positioning themselves, and a lot can come out of it. But United against City, earlier on the season, City do a job on United, to say the least. But this feels a bit different. This one, does it feel a bit different for you? Because I feel like they're where they are at the moment, despite what you think about squads, the form they're in, and probably where they are mentally. I think this is a really well matched game going in this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, we spoke about it just there. Liam said maybe they're not title contenders just yet. I probably would just about agree. But look, Man United, they're certainly heading in the right direction now. And it kind of shows, you do need to give a manager time that's just come in. And, Erik Ten Hag, I think he's finally starting to get his message across. And yeah, I've been really impressed with United, especially recently. I think you'd maybe add the caveat slightly that they've had some slightly easier games recently. Obviously, we've seen them play Wolves, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth. So there's been a nice run of fixtures. But I think regardless, we're seeing a United team that's starting to build now. There's obviously players hitting form. I think Marcus Rashford obviously been fantastic over the recent weeks. The other hand as well, Man City, I mean, look, they've kind of been slightly inconsistent. Obviously, they did get that win against Chelsea, and that was a big win. But, we've obviously seen them lose to Brentford, pick up some other poor results. So I think they head into this one maybe not as quite strong as they were early in the start of the season when these two teams met. But yeah, this one feels really nicely kind of balanced at the moment, especially with the game, being at Old Trafford. Obviously, we've seen United, they've been really strong. Obviously, got that win earlier in the season against Arsenal. So they've already, shown that they can beat the big teams at Old Trafford this season. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting one. I think Erik Ten Hag has said he's done a brilliant job to kind of turn it around at Manchester United, and they are heading in the right direction now. So yeah, this is going to be a really, really exciting game for sure.
I'll stick with you, Jamie, because I want to give Liam, as a Man United fan, the last word on this. Key players for you from both sides. Give me a key player from both sides and give me a score prediction.
I mean, one player, not too much of a surprise because for me, he's one of the best players in the world in position is Casemiro. I think he's going to be key for Manchester United. Obviously, come in and done a real great job. I think he's kind of shown what you get when you pay for experience, when you pay for one of the top players in the world. Obviously, people kind of question United paying so much for a player like that. But yeah, I think he's come in and done magnificently well in the midfield. So he could be quite key for United. I think Varane as well is also another player who's been really impressive, and kind of the spine of that team looks really good. And that's why United are so good. You've got that experience in the spine of that team. So yeah, I think Casemiro will probably be the key for them. For Man City, it's probably got to be one of the midfielders. I think De Bruyne again is a guy who is probably going to be the key one for Man City. Obviously, Haaland, a lot of talk about him, but look, it's all going to be about creating chances for Haaland. And I think that's going to be the key, because when I've noticed when Haaland's kind of not being given those opportunities, he did seem to kind of offer very little. I mean, we saw at Stamford Bridge, when Man City were struggling to carve out chances, Haaland kind of offered very little. So it's all going to be about, can they create opportunities for Haaland here? And obviously De Bruyne's going to be the key instigator of that. So for me, Kevin De Bruyne and Casemiro are the two to look out for sure.
Score prediction?
I think it's going to be a really exciting one. I'm going to go for 2-2 here. I can't really separate the two teams at the moment. I don't see United losing at Old Trafford here. I'm going to go for 2-2. So that should be quite an exciting game, hopefully.
Liam, key players for both sides, Manchester United in particular for you, and I suppose you can lash a score prediction in as well.
I think Jamie's spot on with Casemiro. He controls the midfield so well, and we haven't had a player like that since Michael Carrick retired. Of the level that's needed. He's just absolutely fantastic. But I think, aside from Casemiro controlling midfield, and that's going to be really difficult against Man City, of course, it's going to be Marcus Rashford. You saw against Everton, sort of got 2 assists and a goal, but his numbers have been well up there this season. He looks completely transformed player from last season. He said so many times in interviews how much he's improved, and mentally he's happier and more confident. And you can see that Ten Hag and Benny McCarthy, the attacking coach, have really worked well with him, and he's just come on leaps and bounds. So providing he can sustain this period of form until the end of the season, then Manchester United got a chance to do really well, and I think that will be their real key player. If you can get Rashford isolated, whether it's against Rico Lewis, the young right back at Man City, or probably most likely Kyle Walker, you can isolate him against Walker. I think there's a chance there that Rashford exposes him and sort of gets on the inside and creates trouble. It's probably likely that they're going to double up on him just because of the quality that he's shown over the last few weeks. But if there's a chance where United soak up a bit of pressure, which is obviously going to be coming from City, and release him on the counter, I think they'll do damage. So that's from United's point of view. From City's, it's hard to overlook KDB and Haaland, obviously, because of what they've done this season. It's just astronomical in terms of numbers that Haaland's put up already. Varane and Martinez, my heart says that they contain him, but my head says that they don't, just because of what he's done and what he's shown. So I think if Haaland can get into the game, we saw against Chelsea where he wasn't in the game at all, and I thought this might be a bit of a wild take, but against Chelsea on Sunday, I thought City actually played better. They looked a better, more well-oiled, well-structured team with Alvarez in there. Whether that comes fruition over a long period of time, who knows? But I just thought that they looked a lot sleeker. But Haaland would obviously start. I think Grealish is in great form. I mean, you could pick anyone out of that City team, but probably De Bruyne, just because of how he runs the midfield and how he commands it, and just of what he's done in the past. For score prediction, oh God, I'm gonna go with my heart and say 2-1 United.
2-1 United. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Casemiro is a big player for United. He really is, and like you said, you can pick many out, even the likes of Alvarez, Foden, who's coming back into the fold on a full-time basis, I suppose, because he's been a bit in and out since the World Cup. I think it's an intriguing game. I think when you watch United against, was it 6-3 it ended up, the first game, but it was 6-1 at one stage, wasn't it? When you watch that game, United's wide men didn't work hard enough. Okay. And what happens with City is they will have their fullback, they will have their right attacking forward, and they'll have Kevin De Bruyne. And they'll all just wander over that side of the pitch, overload you, and get it to De Bruyne in any position. And he's looking for Haaland, and Haaland has great movement. Haaland's not interested in playing football, in the sense that, Marcus Rashford playing up front for United would get involved, or Gabriel Jesus or Harry Kane. Not interested. He just wants to be within the width of the goal, and you get it in there and he'll score goals. And it's worked well for City. It's a real kind of flat track bully sort of outlook they have, where we just put him in and we just score a load of goals and no one can live with us. And if United have to work really hard out wide, and this is where Casemiro might come into it, because they need to push City into the middle of the pitch. They need to make sure that when De Bruyne gets her, or Cancelo or Walker, that they're going into the middle of the pitch and they're making it hard to find a ball through to Haaland. That's where Casemiro might come in. And United then need to be brave going the other way with regards to on the break, because we've seen United, Mostly at the Etihad, to be honest, where they terrorised City on the break because they work really hard, and when they win it, 4 of them go or 5 of them go, and City don't want to run the other way. As much as City are a great side, they don't like running the other way. It's simple as that. I think it's going to be a cracking game. I don't think you're going to stop Haaland from scoring in this one, though. That's just my take. Rashford's on a great run of form. I have this down as 3-2 City, but I could easily go 3-2 United. But it will all depend for me where United make City play this game. If they allow them to go out wide and make the pitch big, they're in trouble. If they keep it compact and push them in centrally towards Casemiro, Eriksen can win a ball and look for Rashford. That sort of thing. It could go either way. I just have City down as 3-2, only going off the back of the last game they've played against each other. And I just don't know if United's wide men work hard enough to help them. So that's where I have it down as. But it's going to be a cracking game. It's early, isn't it? Saturday. It's early Saturday.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a cracking game. Final game. Another derby. The North London one this time. Spurs v Arsenal. I'm going to let Liam go first on this because I'm going to give Jamie the last word on it. But again, Arsenal in first on 44 points. Spurs are 5th on 33. And again, Liam, this will be huge come the end of the weekend because obviously City play United. There's loads going on there with regards to top 4. And it's a big test of Arsenal, this, isn't it?
Huge test. No matter what form either team comes into this, it's still a North London derby. And we've seen in so many seasons gone by where Tottenham aren't in great form, but they get a result. Arsenal aren't in great form, but they get a result. So form sort of goes out the window. It's a bit of a cliche perhaps to say that, but it's so true in this match particularly, more so than any other derby really, I think. So Spurs obviously come off against Portsmouth, 1-0 winners. Wasn't the prettiest of games that we've already discussed, but they got the most important win there. Well, so they got an important win that they needed. Arsenal were flying, absolutely. 3-0 last night against Oxford. Eddie Nketiah filling in the shoes of obviously Gabby Jesus, and he's doing a really good job, by the way. A really good job, to come in and be asked of what Jesus has basically done, but add goals to his game as well. I think that's fantastic for him. So he's in good form. I think if we're talking key players as we did the last game, for Spurs it's obviously Harry Kane. That's obvious. He does absolutely everything for that team. He's helps, tracks back, helps in defence, playmaker in midfield, and gets on the end of his own cross, in attack. So he does everything for that team. In terms of Arsenal, you're looking at Martin Odegaard, and he's probably a bit underrated even this season, even what he's done at the moment, just because of the way he plays the game. He is similar to De Bruyne. He can pick out any pass at any time from any place on the pitch. And that's really exciting for Arsenal that they've got that type of player. I want, as a Manchester United fan, Tottenham to win for obvious reasons, to try and close the gap on the top of the table. Given it's at home, I think the crowd will be bang up for it in terms of Tottenham's point of view. And we always go back to providing Tottenham can just see out the first 20 when Arsenal are going to come out absolutely firing out the gates and want that early goal to silence the crowd. Providing Tottenham can get through that, I actually think they're going to go on to win this game. And I think Conte's got it in him, where the pressure is on, backs against the wall. He's got that doggedness in him to go and get results, and I think this will be one of them.
It's interesting because, Arsenal have come through a couple of tests this season. I think they're fortunate to beat Liverpool at the Emirates. That's my opinion as a Liverpool fan. Although Liverpool went great on the day, overall I thought they should have won the game, but ended up losing it, and that's the story of Liverpool's season at the moment. But they have come through somewhere they're like a goal down and they come back and win the game. It's a tough game against Newcastle and there's a lot being made over penalty shouts and stuff, but that'll always happen. You can't win every game. We've seen Liverpool sides and Man City in the recent past put up 99, 100 points, but you still don't win every game. There's always a draw in there somewhere, defeat. I think this is huge for Arsenal because they go there last season chasing top 4 and they get they're all over the place. Like they're all over the place last season. There's fellas throwing elbows at, I think it was Harry Kane, was it? When he's running to chase a ball. Mad stuff was going on. And Arsenal completely lost their head. They look a different animal this season, but this is the sort of game. They go here, they play United next week, don't they? So these are big tests coming up. They still have to play City twice, so there's a lot of tests ahead for Arsenal. But this is probably the one where I go, this is where your measure is now. I remember last season, I think it's 3-0 at the Tottenham Stadium in the last derby.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, this is where your level is now. Where are you? Because
Yep.
they could go there and get a draw, and that's absolutely fine. But it's the way Arsenal deal with it. On the other hand, Spurs aren't having the best of times. We've seen a bit
No,
of and crowd a little bit annoyed, I think it's fair to say, at the stadium in the last
100%.
while. Could Arsenal feed off this and say to themselves, let's go out in the first 20 and get a goal. Let's see how this crowd turns and see what happens. And that might be Arsenal's outlook. I think it's an intriguing game of football.
Yep.
I won't give me prediction yet. Jamie, before we
Yep.
go to predictions, it's a huge game for Spurs in the race for top four. Stopping Arsenal getting further ahead, because you don't like to say it, but that's the truth. Is this where Conte tries to pick Spurs up again and get them running?
I think the pressure is totally on Spurs here. I think the form of this game, especially for the away team, it's always been very poor. I think there's only the last win for the away side in this fixture came back in 2013. So it's very rarely that the away side comes out on top. So the pressure is certainly on Spurs. I think for Arsenal, maybe they can afford to kind of maybe drop up 2 points here or whatever. Obviously, they have got that gap. And I think, as I said, it's always a very difficult game going away in the North London derby. So I think they'll might know that. It's going to be interesting to see how they do handle the pressure this season. Obviously, we saw last year that when the pressure really mounted on them in those final 2 games or so, they kind of really collapsed. And you maybe look at that Newcastle game, how animated Mikel Arteta was. It'd be interesting to see, was that maybe a bit of signs of him showing that there's pressure now and how they deal with that. So that'd be an interesting factor. But for Spurs, I think this is more important for us than it is for Arsenal. I think for Spurs, if we were to win this game, I think it's, it would act as a real catapult for our season, and maybe we look to get back on track. And, hopefully we add some players in January, and then, the feel-good factor at Spurs, hopefully we'll be back. But if we were to lose, I think that would be, would really turn toxic, because at the moment, as you mentioned, with the issues with the ownership and kind of how the club's being run, it's not been great there. The football's not been easy to watch this season, and, certainly question marks over the way that we play. So, yeah, I think we were to lose this one, I think it would really kind of turn the other way. And I think it would almost be the end of Antonio Conte if we were to lose this one. I think it would turn that sour. So, yeah, for Spurs, I think this is bigger for us than it is for Arsenal. The pressure's on us to kind of go out and get the win here, as with the home team. So, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one, this one. And I'm really kind of nervous talking about it. So.
Yeah, I can see you're nervous, and that's absolutely fine. It's Spurs' biggest game of the season.
Yeah,
like that's what it is. The same way, well, City or United is probably Liverpool, but City is right up there with it as well, and that's what derbies do to you. I think it's very hard to call this one. Really do, Liam. You spoke about Harry Kane there for Spurs. Arsenal have Nketiah playing up front because Jesus is out, but Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard's been excellent. He's been given a freedom for me this season, where there was a lot on him last season, but what was going on around him was like, there's a lot on you. Can you do it? There's a lot on him this season, but he's more support there, with the likes of Partey and stuff. And defensively, they've been really, really good, and they look like they've decent cover there. I think it's really hard to call. Go on, Liam. I'll let you go first.
As I said, I want Tottenham to win this. I really want them to win this. I want them to turn up and put on a good performance and make it just more interesting for top four, because Arsenal are running away with it a little bit. And there could be a danger where Arsenal win this and they beat United next week at home, and they're 8 points, 9 points clear from second place. So I'm going for a Tottenham win. I think it's going to be goal fest central, and I'm going 3-2 Tottenham.
Ooh. Blimey. Yeah.
Well, I'll let Jamie go last. I had this down as 1-1, and that's just me completely sitting on the fence. So if you want to accuse me of that, absolutely, you're fine. Because I think Arsenal will try come out and show, kind of get rid of those demons from that game last season. But I don't think they can stop Spurs scoring. But on the same side, I think Spurs can't stop Arsenal scoring. So I get where you're coming from with the goals galore, but I'm going to go 1-1. And I think Arsenal walk away happy with that. And I think Spurs probably look and go, Arsenal are top of the league. I mean, it's a point, and, who can you argue? But, Jamie, come on. Give us your this one's the interests you the most.
Yeah, I think for sure, look, both teams would be happy with the draw here, as you mentioned there. I think the away team always struggle in this fixture, so Arsenal, I think they'd come away with a point, and I think they'd look at that as a good result. For Spurs, for sure, Arsenal are playing fantastically well at the moment. Spurs maybe kind of question marks over, how we have been playing. I think the big thing will be is whether we can have Bentancur and Kulusevski back. They have been out injured recently, and those two have just been so key for us. I mean, but Bentancur has stepped up so much this season, and if we were to lose him and not have him for this game, I would be slightly worried about the middle of the park. I mean, you see how strong Arsenal have been in midfield this season. Thomas Partey and Xhaka, they've obviously been two key players. So, if we were without Bentancur in the middle, that would be a big blow. Kulusevski is a really important player. The stats without him are really kind of worrying for Spurs. So, if we were to lose him, I would be worried. But I think they should be back. So that's a big boost for Spurs. I think because of Conte and the way he's able to deal with the pressure, maybe opposed to Arteta, I think he's got a lot to prove still in terms of can he deal with that pressure when it's really on him. The show last season has said they weren't able to deal with that very well. So I'm going to go for a Spurs win. I'm going to go for 2-1. I think that would obviously be a massive result for Spurs. As I said, Spurs cannot afford to lose this one. It would turn really, really sour if it does. But equally, a win would really, I think, would kind of catapult us in the right direction again. So it's just a massive, massive game for Spurs. Of course, it's a big game for Arsenal as well. But I think with the pressure being on Spurs, with obviously Spurs needing to play catch up in the race for the top four, in the race for trying to catch Arsenal and not letting them finish above us. Obviously, Spurs aren't going to win the league, but we still want to try and finish above Arsenal if they are to slip off. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 Spurs win.
Good stuff. I didn't expect anything less than you predicted a Spurs win. I've really enjoyed that. They're on their own merits. They're 4 cracking games this weekend. Where you can sit back and relax them, watch some of them. The likes of the Wolves games, the Everton game, but for you, then both of you have big derby games coming this weekend. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope you get. I'm not going to say I hope you get the result you want because I wouldn't. I'd be lying. But it's been a really good show. That has been the Premier League preview show from Bookmakers TV. Thanks a million to Liam. Thanks a million to Jamie. I've been Gav, and we'll talk to you next week. Cheers.